a 1-minute introduction from each of the candidates.
I'm the former mayor of the great city of Lake Worth. I'm running for House District 89, which includes West Palm Beach, Lake Worth, Montana, Palm Beach, Hypoluxo, a little bit of Boynton. I'm certainly well versed in working with women because I've done it my entire life. When I sat on the Lake Worth City Commission, I was the only male that sat on the dais. And I'm endorsed by the Palm Beach Human Rights Council. I'm endorsed by great labor organizations like the AFL-CIO, the Iron Workers, and I'm also endorsed by the Voters Coalition. I'm looking forward to speaking to you today. Thank you.
The ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, is a permanent guarantee of equality for women and men. Do you support the ERA, and will you co-sponsor it?
Slightly disagree with Carol. It's not almost a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace that we haven't passed this amendment here in Florida. And it's also a disgrace that there continues to be a gap between male workers and female workers' pay. We need to work a lot harder to make sure that we bring more attention to that issue, and we need to make sure that we get all the co-sponsors like Representative Pafford that we can on that bill. I can't understand how anybody can sit in the House of Representatives who happens to be male and look at their wife, their daughter, their mother, and somehow tell them that they don't deserve equal pay and equal rights in the state.
There is a disproportionate representation of women in the legislature. How would you support the candidacy of women who support the mission of Palm Beach County now?
Yeah, you've got to support the people who are doing it now. You know, I served on a host committee for one of Kelly's fundraisers. I thought that was important to support the people who are going up there already and doing the good work. But you've got to support your farm team as well. Where do good elected officials come from? They come from the business community. They come from local government. To that end, in my city right now, in the city of Lake Worth, I'm endorsing and supporting 2 female candidates for City Commission, Lisa Maxwell and Carla Bloxon. So if any of you live in the city, please vote for them. They're on the right side of the issues. You know, I think you've got to get out there and meet your local officials, meet your local government officials, and try to support the people who are involved in city boards in moving them up the chain. Eventually, those are the people who are going to be your state representatives, your state senators, and maybe beyond. Well, I think when you're looking at candidates, you know, we're all going to stand up here and say the same kinds of things, but what's important for you to look at is not just what we say, but what people say about us. So you're going to want to look at who's endorsing us and where we're getting our contributions from. I've received over 200 contributions, but my favorite one, the one that I talk about when I go out and tell people who I'm being supported by, is a check that came from the Presidential Women's Center in Mona Reese. It means a lot to me that she felt I was the best candidate, that the folks there felt I was the best candidate for this seat, that I would best protect a woman's right to choose in running for this seat. You know, the idea that we're going to prevent women from getting abortions by showing them a sonogram is frankly disgusting and mean-spirited. And what I'd really like to see us do instead is if we're going to require people to do something medically, why don't we require men to get an N.O.W before they get a Viagra pill? Yes, one of the great things that Mona does at the Presidential Women's Center is she says, "You're not getting any of my money until you come visit my clinic." And I was more than happy to do it. And it's somewhat of a shock to see some of the things that people do outside that clinic and the kind of things that they do in order to try to prevent women from getting good quality health care, both in this county and around our nation. I would encourage you all to do it because it's an eye-opener, and the people who work there really need your support. So if you can walk away with that today, make sure that you go and visit the folks there. And the second part of the question really quickly was, what would I do in the legislature
What would you do to support the clinics of Palm Beach County?
Well, obviously I already support them. In the city of Lake Worth, where I was the mayor, you may remember a few years ago we had a clinic that was set ablaze. You know, and these are the kind of people that we're having to fight against, folks. Never underestimate how passionate and how far to the right these folks are on these issues, and the lengths that they're willing to go to. So we need to make sure that we allow these clinics to have safe zones around them so that people can feel free to go get health care and not be intimidated by people. And we need to make sure that we're providing properly for sexual education in our schools. I listened to the school board candidates earlier talk about the opt-out. I disagree with most of them. I think it should be mandatory. Just like you have to take science classes, you should have to take sex education in schools as well. Well, first of all, we're talking about labor, and there's it's clear in my race that I've received the endorsement of every major labor organization in Palm Beach County. We're talking about people's rights to be able to earn a fair wage. I'm the person that's there fighting for them. But when we're specifically talking about wage inequality, I think one of the great things we can do is to bring some publicity to the issue is pass the ERA. I think we need to make sure that on the state level, we're demanding that all of our government organizations are paying an equal wage. We need to start at home. And then we need to do a better job of prosecuting and electing an attorney general that's going to go out and go after some of these companies that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right now we have an attorney general who is filing lawsuits against the federal government because he doesn't want all of us to get health care. So, what we need to do is as a legislature, work with our law enforcement officials to make sure that they're shedding light on these issues. And we need to do a much better job of passing legislation that makes sure that women and other minorities are paid at a scale that is commensurate with what males are paid. Well, again, Jeff Clemens, this issue's right in my wheelhouse because with all due respect to Representative Skidmore, I don't think there's any elected official in Palm Beach County that's been more friendly to the LGBT community over the past 3 years. After I got elected as mayor of the city of Lake Worth, within 60 days, we passed transgender, one of the first cities in Palm Beach County to pass transgender as a protected class in our city. We helped bring the Gay Lesbian Community Center of Palm Beach County to downtown Lake Worth by donating use of it. Thank you. If any of you have been to Compass, it's a fantastic building in our downtown. It's great for our community. And we hired the first transgender city manager in the United States in the city of Lake Worth. Like my opponent Pete, one of the first things I'm going to do is to file the bill that his wife has been following for the past 8 years, but we're going to get a hearing on that bill. We're going to get a hearing on that bill to allow gay adoption in the state of Florida. I'm adopted myself, and no one can tell me that I would have been better off being raised in a foster home than by a set of loving parents who happen to be gay or lesbian.
What do you think should be done to solve the issue of illegal immigration in the U.S.?
Well, again, this is another issue that I've dealt with in Lake Worth, and I think dealt with in marked contrast to how Arizona is dealing with their issue. They want to create a police state where they're going to pull people over for being brown. In the city of Lake Worth, what we decided to do instead was to create a worker center where people can go to find work, where they can go to get educated, where they can learn the language, where they can become assimilated into our society. The idea that we're going to send 12 million people back to their countries of origin is just simply untenable. It's far too expensive and it's not going to happen. So what we should do is deal with the problem as it exists right now. And I don't think you deal with that by creating an Arizona-style law that I think has a serious undertone of racism. There are 40,000 less illegal immigrants, in Florida now than there were 10 years ago. So why all of a sudden has this become the issue du jour? I'd suggest to you that it's because we're going through hard economic times and people are looking for someone to blame. And I don't think we need to put it on the backs of people who are out there working, whether they're here legally or not. We need to find a path to citizenship for the people who are here, secure our borders, and make sure we treat people as human beings rather than as commodities. Well, first of all, I want to thank N.O.W. for putting this forum on, so thank you for all your hard work. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank my opponent Pete. It's a little bit uncomfortable for me, for those of you who don't know, I worked for Representative Brandenburg in her first term. So having to run against her husband is not the most comfortable thing for me. I prefer not to be doing it. But it's because of the work that Pete and others did 30 years ago on the ERA and other issues that allow the younger generation like myself to be able to run for office and try to fight for the citizens of our state. So I appreciate that immensely. In terms of the differences between us, I'm the only person who running for this race who's served as an elected official, who's managed multi-million-dollar budgets, who's made tough decisions on the dais in front of large groups of people. And I think that makes a difference when you send people to Tallahassee that they have that kind of experience. I would encourage you to look at our endorsements and look at our contributions, because I think that tells the story. The people who support us. I'm supported by all of the major Democratic-leaning organizations, and that includes the AFL-CIO, the Iron Workers, the Voters Coalition, the Palm Beach Human Rights Council, and I think if you look at those endorsements, then you'll end up deciding that I'm the right person to send out to Tallahassee. My name's Clemens.